When I went out to kill myself, I caught a pack of hoodlums beating up a man. Running to spare his suffering, I forgot my name, my number, how my day began. How soldiers milled around the garden stone and sang amusing songs. How all that day their javelins measured crowds. How I alone bargained the proper coins and slipped away. Banished from heaven, I found this victim beaten, stripped, kneed, and left to cry. Dropping my rope aside, I ran, ignored the uniforms. Then I remembered bread my flesh had eaten, the kiss that ate my flesh. Flayed without hope, I held the man for nothing in my arms. Taking a comfortable seat, thinking about how a poem like this fits into our conversation around right effort. And just letting yourself fall backwards into this moment. Like I say, often all the thoughts like silt swirling around in a glass of water, just letting them settle and fall. Your hands facing up on your lap in that pose of receptivity, openness, and feeling a smile starting in your heart, not behind your eyes or in the mouth, but way deep at the center in the heart so that it reaches every cell of your body. And then we're here, we feel the walls widening and the ceiling rising. We feel that those things that we're holding on to and grasping so tight, those worries and concerns and ruminations, are all kind of like softened in our grip. And just as an experiment for the next half hour, we practice Kshanti. We include all of that. We feel infinite patience for all of that. And just lengthening the neck by a millimeter and straightening the back. And letting the shoulders fall and relax, and the muscles in the face relaxing around the eyes. The jaw. And when you feel a little resistance, a little tug back toward tension, just take note of that. Say, far out. Relaxing the throat and the neck. And then feeling the drawbridge come down over the guarded heart. And for 15 minutes, just sending the guards home. Softening the belly. And now we're in it. And as you breathe into the count of 4, with a pause at the top of the breath, and breathing out to the count of 5, you can practice Tonglen for yourself and for others. Breathing in, I know this is an illusory world. Breathing out, I choose this world to help relieve the suffering of others. Breathing in, I offer myself the freedom to see that these worries I'm holding are all passing, illusory. Breathing out, I don't judge myself or blame myself for having them. They come with the package. Two more breaths. Saint Judas by James Wright. When I went out to kill myself, I caught a pack of hoodlums beating up a man. Running to spare his suffering, I forgot my name, my number, how my day began, how soldiers milled around the garden stone and sang amusing songs, how all that day their javelins measured crowds, how I alone bargained the proper coins and slipped away. Banished from heaven, I found this victim beaten, stripped, kneed, and left to cry. Dropping my rope aside, I ran, ignored the uniforms. Then I remembered bread my flesh had eaten, the kiss that ate my flesh. Flayed without hope, I held the man for nothing in my arms. First of all, to begin, at the foundation, this is a persona poem and the point of view of Judas Iscariot. And it happens at a very specific moment in the story. It happens at the moment that Judas realizes that for betraying Jesus, he will be banished from heaven. And he's on his way to end his life. And in the course of that journey, he sees someone who has been attacked on the side of the road. And he forgets everything that has happened. And we go through the whole story of the Last Supper and the crucifixion, the soldiers in the Garden of Gethsemane, the selling of the information, and then the kiss that indicates that Jesus is the one they should take away. Famous story of Judas kissing Jesus in that almost erotic moment of their joining, which I'll speak about later. But this moment is interesting because even after he remembers that he's banished from heaven, in James Wright's version, he stays and he holds the man for nothing in his arms, for no money and for no merit. And it's a very poignant poem considering today, but also in the context of right effort. Why do we do the right thing? Why do we make an effort to practice wholesome responses and to end and avoid the unwholesome ones? So this poem always reminds me of a story. And it's a very beautiful story of Wesley Autry from 2007, who was a man standing at a subway stop in New York with his two children when beside him, a 19-year-old kid began to have a seizure and fell into the pit as the train was coming. And as the witnesses tell it, Wesley Autry jumped into the pit to try to pull him out. And when he realized there was no time, he held the man down as the train rolled over them. And in the silence that followed, everyone thought that these two men were dead. But then we heard Wesley Autry's voice saying, "We're okay down here. Tell my children I'm fine." There are lots of ways to rationalize altruistic behavior. We say we're altruistic to our children because we want to continue the species, that there are biological imperatives that force us sometimes to be altruistic. But in this case, it's complicated because Autry was there with his children and he chose a stranger over them. It was this moment of a flash that he had to help this man. We get so many negative messages about why people do things in our news cycle that we can only use language to talk about altruism and right effort based on the rationale that we're often witness to. Like, we do it because we want to get into heaven. We do it because there's a payment, there's something in it for us of some sort. We do it out of fear of punishment. We do it to gain position and respect, or we just do it to be remembered well, to leave a nice legacy. But what's truly saintly in both of the figures that I'm talking about is that they do it with no promise of merit whatsoever. As James Wright tells it, this figure of Judas does it for nothing. And the answer to this question of why do we choose to do the right thing, even if it's for nothing, comes from Joseph Campbell, my favorite, who, quoting Schopenhauer, said that it's the metaphysical realization that I and the other are one. That in this moment, when all of the other issues are taken off the table, we see in a flash that that's me. And when we live from that center, we don't have to count our pennies or count our merit. We can give the merit for whatever we're doing freely away. That's the bodhisattva life. We make the right effort gently and even blissfully, knowing we're contributing to ourselves, which is the whole organism. The second thing I want to say about this poem is that it's a sonnet. And as a sonnet, it carries what Joseph Brodsky called a spiritual magnitude. Brodsky said that fixed forms that go back hundreds or thousands of years carry with them all of the stories that were held in those containers. And that when we participate in the making of a sonnet or the making of an epic or the making of a tragedy, somehow we're being helped along by all of the other artists and all of the imagination that once filled that same container. And it's the kind of feeling you have when you walk into a cathedral and you see those steps that are melted down by people's knees, and the feeling of all of the prayer and all of the worship that has filled this room for 1,000 years. He talked about sonnets that way. A sonnet as a spiritual magnitude is like a hearth, a sturdy box of stone that can hold a fire. And inside sonnets, we have all of the worst things like death and the volatility of love. And we have loss, and we have grief, and we have confusion. So you need a strong box to hold all of that. I see Judas too, in the way that James Wright is telling it, as a kind of spiritual magnitude. That Judas is a container for this figure of Jesus. It's a very Gnostic kind of reading. In the Gnostic Gospels, there's even a Gospel of Judas in which Judas is a necessary component to the story of Jesus and is actually a respectable character to a certain extent because he's helping Jesus more than any of the others to escape his body. And if you look at Judas as the figure that contains Jesus, if you put walls all around this life, and it can't escape this way, and it can't escape that way, it can only go straight up. So it's a way of looking at the obstructions in our lives as a kind of metrical form that's holding us in constantly and saying, oh, no, no, your line can't go any further than that. Oh, no, no, there are rules here, and you are also obliged to follow the rules. And when you have those walls, it forces us up. The thing I wanted to show you all is this Caravaggio, which is a perfect explication. And you see that Judas's and Jesus's hands are threaded together here at the bottom in this moment of the kiss. They are one thing. Here's the poem again. When I went out to kill myself, I caught a pack of hoodlums beating up a man. Running to spare his suffering, I forgot my name, my number, how my day began, how soldiers milled around the garden stone and sang amusing songs, how all that day their javelins measured crowds, how I alone bargained the proper coins and slipped away. Banished from heaven, I found this victim beaten, stripped, kneed, and left to cry. Dropping my rope aside, I ran, ignored the uniforms. Then I remembered bread my flesh had eaten, the kiss that ate my flesh. Flayed without hope, I held the man for nothing in my arms. Getting back into that comfortable seat. Hands on your lap. in that receptive pose. Feeling the muscles of the face relax, and the neck. A smile in the heart. Question is, what is it you do for no thing? When no one's watching, for no merit whatsoever. That's when the real you steps forward. As we did last week in our meditation on right effort, I asked you to step back behind your name. Step back behind your body and take a seat from that vantage point. And taking off the body the things that you can lose. And just mentally nodding. It's not me. And then your thoughts. It's said that the brain creates thoughts like the mouth creates saliva. It's difficult, I know, but just watching your thoughts, moving like sparrows across the sky of the mind. They come and they go. They started with the ideas of others. They're going out into the world and affecting the thoughts of still more. But that's not me either. And then the weather of that sky, the clouds, the darkness, the sunlight peeking through. That weather can change in an instant. That must not be me. I can lose that. In a moment, a seed of anger that had been planted in me can suddenly burst forth. So we just sit back and we don't judge and we watch the emotions. This is really possible. and our beliefs, what we think is true, and the scars that the world has left on us. Physical scars, emotional scars. Ways we think we're supposed to be. If I can lose it, it must not be me. And then the most foundational stories we tell about ourselves, my name, my number, the things that Judas forgets. I'm bad, I'm good. All of the memories that we identify as our lives. We all know we can lose those too. And from that vantage point, behind our name, we get a glimpse of what we really are. And it's that person who bursts through and jumps down into the pit against all logic. And it's that person who holds a man even though there's nothing in it for him. And then we put it back on, enjoying those memories, reveling in everything that happened, having fun with our role, playing it like a good actor, being a little more open about our beliefs, holding them a little bit lighter in our hands. Feeling the passion that emotions offer us. What a beautiful thing. And the curiosity and the spark of thinking. We just put it on like a beautiful coat. Knowing that the one behind all that is driving a bus. St. Judas. When I went out to kill myself, I caught a pack of hoodlums beating up a man. Running to spare his suffering, I forgot my name, my number, how my day began, how soldiers milled around the garden stone and sang amusing songs, how all that day their javelins measured crowds, how I alone bargained the proper coins and slipped away. Banished from heaven, I found this victim beaten, stripped, kneed, and left to cry. Dropping my rope aside, I ran, ignored the uniforms. Then I remembered bread my flesh had eaten, the kiss that ate my flesh. Flayed without hope, I held the man for nothing in my arms. Thank you all. Lovely to see you today.
Thank you.